In the course of revisiting many sites of my acquaintance on the Indiana University campus, I discovered that all the landmarks named after IU President David Starr Jordan, and there were many, had been renamed due to his controversial views around eugenics. Jordan was also the founding president of Stanford University in California. There he has also been similarly erased from its history. Many features of eugenics are pseudoscientific, to be sure. Although, to be honest, universities are not always hostile to squishy science and scholarship. Remember this, with institutions, never accept the offer to be a college president, because they will name a building after you and then take it away after you die in a very public way. It is the equivalent of digging up the body of Oliver Cromwell for the sole purposes of a public posthumous execution, and then putting his severed head on a spike in the public square. Up until the right of rule was restored to the descendants of the executed King Charles I, Cromwell slept comfortably in his grave. This is Kirkwood Avenue, also called 5th Street. Heading east through downtown will put you at the Sample Gates, which are the unofficial entrance of Indiana University. This is the prettiest view of downtown looking back through these gates. As you can see, construction work is mucking up the view. I'm afraid this will be a theme of our tour of the IU campus. All these yellow areas are where the campus is blocked off with orange fencing. This is a good description of Bloomington. Can't get there from here. These impressive buildings include administration and student services. The oldest buildings on campus are made of brick. Maxwell Hall and Kirkwood Hall are among the oldest buildings on campus made with Indiana limestone. They show a Victorian influence. All modern buildings on campus are made of limestone. The stone gargoyle of Maxwell Hall is the model for the gargoyle in Chapter 4 of Icarus Transfigured. This is the Indiana Memorial Union, which is the model for Nader Hall on Purcell College, first met in Chapter 12 of Icarus Transfigured. This set of double doors from the same chapter is where Aiden sees a trapped bird circling frantically. These wood doors are where he meets with the wedding reception in progress. This fireplace is also mentioned in Chapter 12. Nader Hall is described as a maze of corridors. When I lived within walking distance of Indiana Memorial Union, I used to walk here on the weekends when it was mostly empty. Like Aiden in Chapter 12, I executed internal monologues about the plight of my isolated life while I paced. I went to the Union last year to do some still photography and saw someone I vaguely recognized who was, like my former self, walking aimlessly in these halls. I imagine that more than one person on the spectrum has found solace in this place. Bloomington is a safe space for friendless people, and when you can only afford to live in small apartments, being near campus makes it your front yard. I still remember the first day I walked this campus. I had been utterly terrified to travel here. But that day was the first day I realized the nature of the sanctuary before me. This is a graveyard that abuts the Union. This is Woodburn Hall, which I have always thought is the prettiest building on campus. This connecting green space is where I brought my students to draw when I was an associative instructor at IU. This is the Indiana University Art Museum, designed by I.M. Pei. I worked here as an art guard after I graduated in 1988. This is one of 3 fountains at IU. The one at the Simon Music Center is behind orange fencing. This one sits in front of the School of Fine Arts, where I taught my drawing class, and went to many art receptions in its gallery. This building is relatively new. I discovered it several years ago exploring campus. While the legendary Herman B. Wells was alive, IU constrained itself on new building construction because Wells wanted to preserve the green spaces for students. After he passed away, Indiana University went crazy with new construction. This nearby building is even newer. It was not here the last time I visited. When I saw this, I thought, this looks like a Bauhaus design, and sure enough, it was based on a design by Mies van der Rohe. This is the School of Education, which replaced Arbutus Hall and Pine Hall on 7th Street, which is where the graduate painting and sculpting programs had their studios. At the time this building was built, it was called the Emerald City. That's Eigenmann Hall back there, where I used to live as a graduate student. My best friend in the arts program was at Arbutus Hall, and we used to walk together back to Eigenmann for lunch every day. My second-year painting studio overlooked this brook. Here is where Pine Hall stood. We sometimes ate lunch at Reed Hall when we did not feel like walking back to Eigenmann. This is the Musical Arts Center, very nearby, where I attended many operas and concerts. The Indiana University School of Music is regarded as one of the best music programs in the world. It is so successful that it took over this building, which I believe used to be the old education building. It was renovated many years ago. This is the back of the Jacobs School of Music, where practice rooms are. Next to it is the back of the Welsh Quadrangle. This is Sycamore Hall and Morrison Hall. Here one finds philosophy and foreign language programs. This is where the university president lives in the center of campus. We take a sharp turn south to get to 3rd Street and the 2 oldest science buildings on the main campus. I had a work-study job my first year at IU, working in Swain Hall West, where I tracked asteroids for the Smithsonian. It sounds more glamorous than it was. I looked at old photographic plates to find asteroids and then marked the center of them with a machine. Rawls Hall, also on 3rd, is the home of mathematics. This concludes the first day of my tour of the campus. On the way home, I stopped by another Bloomington landmark, the Chocolate Mousse, where I got an ice cream sundae. This building is also relatively new and replaces an older, smaller building. My second day begins on 4th Street, which takes us past trendy restaurants. We enter the campus by the old observatory. This is the law school where my best friend, who was the model for Omar in Icarus Transfigured, did his degree. This forested area separates the central campus from the science buildings we visited previously. Lindley Hall, home to the Kinsey Institute, puts us in the same vicinity. This part of campus is very congested with trees and orange construction fencing, so it is hard to get a good shot of these buildings. It took me a while to figure out which building this was. The chemistry building sits next to Ballantine Hall, the tallest building on campus, west of Eigenmann Hall. This is where all the freshmen go for English classes. It was equally infamous in the 1980s for students leaping off its roof. There was a cartoonist who made a zine called Tussin, which was about his addiction to Robitussin. He, I believe, was a leaper. This is Rawls Hall seen the day before, but from the side that faces a green space. Again, more construction. This is Simon Hall, the first building they built after Wells died. It ate significantly into the green space that was formerly here. I spent 20 minutes looking for insects carved into this building's friezes. Couldn't find them. This building was the model for Peabody Library in Icarus Transfigured. We are back on 3rd Street. Myers Hall is part of biology and medicine. Jordan Hall, which abuts it, includes more life sciences and a greenhouse. This is Memorial Hall and is the entrance of the Wells Quadrangle, which I previously mentioned. The Wells Quadrangle was the inspiration for Willis Quadrangle in Icarus Transfigured, first met in Chapter 3. Famous composers' names are carved into this building, which is the oldest music building on campus. Unlike David Jordan, Wagner's name has not been removed. I guess some people are just too big to sandblast away. This building must have been finished in the 1920s because somewhere among the names of composers on this building was the French composer Camille Saint-Saëns, who was still alive at the time. His star is not so bright now as it was then. This studio practice building is yet another new building built for the music school. This Tudor-inspired house could be the model for Spyglass Darkly House in Icarus Transfigured. This is the right quadrangle dormitory. On this side of Jordan and all the way to the bypass, one finds the oldest dormitories and apartments for students, including the Ashton Center, where the Reverend Jim Jones purportedly worked in a cafeteria. Most of the fraternities and sororities lie to the north, along with sports facilities. These locations cover a lot of real estate. This is the main library on campus and faces 10th Street. This building is named after Herman B. Wells, the legendary president of IU back in the 1930s. This is the largest green space on campus and forms the northern approach to school. This is the Kelley School of Business, which is the largest complex of buildings on the far side of 10th Street. This was typically as far east as I would walk when I lived on the near north side. This is the steam plant, which is the most conspicuous structure on campus. Along with Ballantine Hall and Eigenmann Hall, it is a landmark readily seen from many vantages in town. I can even see it from my side of town at Rose Hill Cemetery during the winter when there are no leaves on the trees. This complex of buildings includes some old ones. geology, and psychology. This is the second science building they built after Simon Hall, and while I was still living in this neighborhood. This open green space is where the printmaking studios used to stand. And Luddy Hall is where Morgan Hall, which was a dorm converted into studios for the painting students, used to stand. The university owns a lot of houses around here, which are leased to graduate students. The chandelier-like structure that occupies the highest point of Luddy Hall looks more impressive from the bottom of the stairs. Here's another look of the North Campus, back toward the library and business school. This is Collins Living Learning Center, where all the artsy-fartsy undergraduate students lived. In this direction lies the swimming pools where Olympian champion Mark Spitz practiced. Further west, past the field house, is the Art Museum, School of Fine Arts, and the Television Building. This puts us at 7th Street facing Indiana University Memorial Union once again, except from the north side of the building. Dunn Meadow is the last green space we will tour, and perhaps the most important, and is where Culture Shock, which is an annual spring music festival, is held. This building brings us full circle back to the west side of campus.